The White Pill is available now at whitepillbook.com. This episode is brought to you by Patriot Gold. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us a very special guest. I'm really excited about this episode. Tina Descovich, she's one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, which is really one of the biggest organizations making waves with the education system nowadays. Now, Tina, before we started talking, you kind of told me this funny story because I was talking to you and your co-founder about who's going to do this episode, and you got a special little message.
Yeah, I was saying my college son, who's 22, he helps me out a lot with my email and just helping me out with some things. So he gets into my email and he sees some of the messages come in. And I was telling you, sometimes Tiffany takes some of the media and sometimes I take some of the media, and he saw the request for us. And he immediately texted me and said, "Mom, you have to take this one. He's so cool. I want to see you on that show." And so I piped in to Marley and said, "Sign me up for this one, please."
Well, so I have to kind of tell you, your son's kind of setting you up because I'm like one of the internet's biggest trolls, and now I think he just wants to see me clown mom. But there's not going to be any clowning, because when it comes to these issues, I am an uncle, as people who watch the show know. I take them really, really seriously, and I am extremely disturbed by not only what's going on in schooling, but also the narrative that this is all lies and propaganda and homophobia and Nazism and so on and so forth. In fact, if you read any article, and I'm sorry to open with this, but as a Jewish person, this is something I just really want to get out of the way. Moms for Liberty, quoting Hitler. I didn't even bother reading these articles because I'm positive all these references are, this is what Hitler warned about, and this is what we're against, blah, 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 blah. But they're trying to make you out as if you're quoting him sympathetically. Am I getting it correctly?
Yeah, you're getting it 100% correctly. It's a mom putting out a warning. Putting out a warning, basically. I mean, our tagline that we use all the time is, we do not co-parent with the government, because we believe government overreach is a problem, and it's a problem in our family, and it's a real problem when raising our children and outside influences trying to impact the moral upbringing of our children. And so it was put out as a warning. And of course, the media immediately twisted it and it made it look like something it wasn't.
And it's also the idea that when CNN is running Trump speeches, are they saying, "Oh, look how great Trump is"? Like, it's just so shameless, and it's really kind of disheartening to me to see these kind of brazen attempts. Let's talk a little bit about the founding of the organization, how successful it's come so quickly. Like, what motivated you to start Moms for Liberty, and how would you describe the organization to people who aren't familiar with your work?
This is my favorite stuff to talk about. Thanks for asking. So Tiffany and I are former school board members here in Florida. We served from 2016 to 2020. We didn't know each other. We were on separate boards. We saw government overreach happening. We saw the failure of public education happening, unfortunately. And we live in pretty great districts compared to some around the country, but we still saw how things worked. We saw the power the teachers' unions had, the undue influence they had, even here in Florida, where they're not as strong as, say, Los Angeles or Chicago, but they have power here. They have ultimate say on contracts, and they work to get their friends and their members elected to school boards. And so they sit down at the negotiating table with themselves, negotiating taxpayer money for their pay, or negotiating what time school is going to open or what day is. There's nobody there at that negotiating table for parents, for kids, for families. So we saw all this happening. We like to say we saw behind the education curtain. We saw back there. And then 2020 happened. COVID happened, and all of America saw behind the education curtain. And when parents were upset, they'd go to school board meetings to speak about it. Their mics were getting shut off. The doors were getting locked. Zoom links were not getting sent out, all the things. And so we kind of took a lay of the land, and we said, we know how to help these people navigate the system. We know how to empower these parents to stand up for their parental rights, to defend their parental rights. We know how to help fix public education. We know how to get parents more involved. And so Moms for Liberty was born January 1st, 2021.
One of my tweets that I cite all the time is do not let people who despise you raise your children as their own. And I am very, one of the things I'm very hard on conservatives often because I think in many issues they don't get it. And this kind of drumbeat about conservatives, like I can't like open up the schools, let's get my kids back to government schools. It's like, you know that these organizations are run by people who despise you and your values, and yet you are tripping over yourselves to hand over your kids to them. And I am so heartened, and again, I'm not a conservative, but I'm so heartened by how many more parents of all political persuasions are taking a greater interest in their kids' education, especially seeing who has been, running the show for so many years.
Yeah, thanks. We're thankful for all the people that are in this fight. Conservatives in general have been fighting for school choice for decades, which is great. We support school choice, parents' right to direct the upbringing of their children and with their education and choose which school they want to go to. But they've been doing that for decades, and 80% of kids are still in public schools and they're still getting indoctrinated. They're the future voters of America, clearly the majority. And so we believe you cannot ignore public education. We can't just keep ceding that ground to radical liberals. Or not only is it the demise of our country, it's the demise of our families. It's the demise of our children. And so that's why we started Moms for Liberty. That's why we fight so hard. And honestly, the American people know and see, and that's why we're growing the way we are growing.
Messaging is obviously something that you guys find very important, both from your opponents and for what you're putting forward. Maybe this is just a minor point, but I'm just curious. Why do you choose to refer to them as public schools instead of government schools? Because when you refer to them as government schools, I think that clicks in a lot of people's brains that, oh, wait a minute, this isn't like using a stamp or crossing the street. This is an agency that has intentions that are often, counter to those that I value.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because if you had Tiffany on here, my co-founder, she always says government schools.
Okay.
That terminology. I like to connect with people with where they are. And I think that kind of throws people off sometimes. I think people have reactions when you say public schools. If you've been watching Libs of TikTok the last year and you hear public schools.
She's the friend of the show. She's been on, yeah.
Yeah, your reaction is like, ugh. But honestly, most people, if they think about their public school experience, people feel warm. They think about their favorite teacher. And so I go about things a little different than Tiffany. I think that's why we make such a good team. I like to connect on that warmth connection and then explain to them what's going on. But she goes right in usually for the hard truth of this is a government school and what can you really expect from a government school.
Let's go issue by issue because there's so many issues that are completely, in my opinion, mischaracterized in the corporate press about education and legislation surrounding it. So I'd love to hear your perspective and to break this stuff down, which is just going to be your bread and butter. The so-called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, right? Ron DeSantis made it a felony that if you say the word gay, you are going to go to jail in Florida. This is a huge assault on the First Amendment. Can you break down that fight from the inside?
That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Was that printed somewhere just like that? It's a felony to say.
No, but I mean, if you go on social media, like people will say this with a straight face.
Well, they hashtag all the time, say gay, say gay. I'm like, say gay. I don't care. Say gay all day long. Nobody in Florida cares if you say gay or if you are gay. Come to Florida, be gay. We have somebody on our national team who is part of the LGBTQ community. This misnomer that on a lot of things, that we don't love and care about people that are gay is insane. But the Don't Say Gay bill, as they called it, was House bill. It was the Parental Rights and Education bill, and basically it kept initially the teaching of gender ideology out of kindergarten through third grade, which, by the way, all the polling shows most of America, I think 73% of America easily, hands down, says that gender ideology should not be taught to elementary school kids, period, end of story. Nobody thinks that a kindergartner should be taught from their teacher, you can be a boy or a girl, neither or both. You can change it from day to day, depending on how you feel. That is not a fact. That is not truth. Historically, it's never been truth. Just because some people want to interject that doesn't mean it should be allowed. So Governor DeSantis, by signing that bill, protected kindergartners through third grade. And just to expand on that a little bit, because there's been a lot of false information about that. Does that mean that Sally can't come into the classroom and say, I have two moms? No. Does that mean Sally can't talk to her teacher or to Sarah about her two dads? No, it doesn't say anything about that in the bill. It means the teacher cannot instruct the children, teach them, as she would teach them math, that they can be a boy or a girl, neither or both. It's as simple as that.
What has been the fallout from this bill, and how have you guys been active, if at all, in combating this counter narrative?
We just keep saying the truth. I mean, we've been blessed that a lot of media, including the Dr. Phil show, had us on to talk about it, and we were able to speak truth. And I think, those that want to hear truth hear it and they understand it. There are those that do not want to hear truth. They wouldn't know truth if it whacked them upside the head. And there's really nothing we can do to change their opinion on that.
One of the things that, there's almost this kind of, I forget who used the expression drive-by media, but it's an apt one, where they'll throw out headlines or use terms in non-traditional ways, and people who don't have the attention span or interest will see the headline, perceive it from their context, and just deduce the rest. And this is very, in my opinion, by design. Another example of this is that Florida is banning books, right? So the idea that, like, if you're in Florida, I can't buy Tom Sawyer, or what it was, a genderqueer, one of these books, and he's made illegal, which I'm sure you would agree, if a governor tried to make it illegal to buy a book in their state, not only would that be grossly unconstitutional, it'd be grossly immoral.
Can't people just, can't they think through, like, wouldn't there be lawsuits left and right? Wouldn't he be
Wait,
losing?
hold on. I'm going to interrupt you. I got to interrupt you. They can't think, and that's by design, and that's a function of government schooling. In my view, and I would love to hear your thoughts about this, the whole point of government schooling is to break down young, creative minds who are asking questions and have them be obedient to the mediocre person in the front of the room. And you're taught to follow the teacher when you're young, and then when you're older, you're following Jake Tapper or Sean Hannity, and you're not thinking for yourself and just regurgitating their talking points. So no, I don't think they can think, and I think that's the point of public schooling.
It's so depressing.
Am I wrong, though?
You are not wrong. And it's becoming more and more like that every day. I mean, just look at what's happening around the country, eliminating gifted programs. That's been going on for a decade.
Is that true? They've started doing that?
Yes. Not only that, they look at, oh my gosh, some of these schools around the country, not only, I mean, they're eliminating grading and no more A's, B's, C's, and D's. They're changing everything. We have the lowest reading scores since the 1980s. We have the lowest math scores in the history of the United States. We have the lowest ACT scores that came out 2 days ago in like 2 decades. It's just getting worse and worse. And they're trying to hide that, to cover that up. And so they do that by getting rid of the grading systems, getting rid of the gifted programs, so everybody looks a little more equal, getting rid of advanced math and advanced, like, it's just,
I was not, it's even worse than I thought. I went to a gifted program in junior high, and then I went to Stuyvesant for high school, which was a very equal test. Anyone in New York City, no matter what your race, gender, background, immigration status, you take this test, and whoever does well gets into Stuyvesant, whoever does poorly doesn't. So we had a very diverse school of very, very smart, high achieving kids, many of whom were very poor or first or second generation immigrants, this being New York City. So is their argument that these tests are somehow discriminating against poor people or race, whatever? So therefore, because we don't like the results, we have to eliminate them?
So I don't know if you even know from when you took the test, but for a very long time, at least 10 years or so, probably more, even that test is weighted differently. So if you are low socioeconomic class, if you are a minority, you only have to score X on that to get into the gifted program. If you are
Oh, wow.
It's been that way for a very long time. I don't know if you know that when you took the test, you just
I did not. I don't think it was that way. I'm ancient. I don't think it was that way when I took it, but
it's been that way for a long time. But it's gotten worse because they've just done away with gifted programs. They stopped funding them, and then, I mean, school boards are literally voting to get rid of them. They're getting rid of their AP programs, any of their advanced programs. Parents are angry. They show up at these school board meetings and they're just devastated that the programs their kids have been part of, or they were part of as a student, and they were able to excel in, just are being done away with.
What greater path is there for, like, someone who's poor or from a crappy family or in some way disadvantaged to have this access to, like, fast forward education, so that when they're in college and so on and so forth. They're coming out swinging, and they're the ones who are going to go back to their neighborhoods and be those kind of citizen leaders that basically make civil society thrive. So this is extremely disturbing to me to learn, and this is just taking on just the basis of the future of what makes any society great.
Look, I'm a product of public education. I came from a very low income family, a single mom of four who had not graduated from high school herself. So, what I think it's one of the reasons I'm passionate about public education. It gave me the skills and the tools I needed to get where I am today. And so I know that you say government schools, public education bad. I say if you need to protect your children, if you have the means, the ability, or you have school choice, get your kids out. Do what you need to do for your kids. But we cannot give up the fight in the public education system because most kids are still there, and we can't just cede that ground.
Hey folks, did you know that traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat, and it can lead to acne, allergies, stuffy noses, and is gross? Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, eco-friendly bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent 99% of bacteria and require 3 times less laundry. They use silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA. They're thermoregulating, and they're designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long. That means you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping in bacteria. It can clog your pores. It can cause breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/malice to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you save over 40%. And if you use our code MALICE at checkout, you get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you aren't 100% satisfied, you get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/malice. Use code MALICE. Get your free 3-piece towel set. Save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/malice to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Folks, sleep is a very important issue. Poor sleep can cause weight gain, mood issues, poor mental health, and lower productivity. So I want to talk to you about Beam Dream. Beam's Dream Powder is a healthy hot cocoa for sleep. And today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, which is their best-selling healthy hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. And it's now available in delicious flavors like sea salt caramel, cinnamon cocoa, and chocolate peanut butter. Better sleep has never tasted better because Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, melatonin, and nano CBD to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. A recent clinical study revealed Dream helped 93% of users wake up feeling more refreshed, and 93% reported that Dream helped them get a more restful night's sleep. Just mix Beam Dream into hot water or milk, stir or froth, and enjoy before bedtime. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/malice and use code MALICE at checkout. That's shopbeam.com, BEAM.com/malice, and use code MALICE for up to 40% off. You have problems sleeping, you have problems falling asleep, you're not getting good rest, this is something you can try that might really help you out. Thank you, Beam. Let's get back to the show. So, sorry, I'd hijacked what we were talking about earlier. Let's talk again about what they're talking about with the so-called banning of books. Can you break down the real facts there?
Sure. No one in Florida is trying to ban books. Some of the books that are being found are not appropriate for children, but this is a local decision always. Communities, school districts, and even Monsters Liberty chapters that have concerns about books, they bring them to their school district because every parent has the right to say, this book is concerning, and I would like either A, to opt my child out of this, or I want it to go through your book review committee. That is not banning books. And having a public school library that's funded by taxpayer dollars, that is at a school that's meant to educate children, that, by the way, is failing miserably, as we just talked about, you need to cultivate a library. You need books there that are going to educate, that are going to help teach them to read, that are going to intrigue their minds, that they can get excited about. But some of this stuff is just straight up porn and smut. If I have one around here, I don't know. A lot of times when we're on the news, we pull them out and read them.
I wish I could go 1 week without a guest pulling out some pornography on the show. Hi, it was out of control.
Really?
No, not really.
If you want me to, there's gender
No,
queer.
I
That was
don't. I don't.
middle
It's
school
I know this
right.
is your job. I know this is your job and your, what you're fighting for, but when I see this imagery on like social media and this is what's being given to like elementary school kids, and then to also be accused at the same time that this is either it's not happening, but if it was and you were opposed to it, you're a Nazi, is so disingenuous and disturbing to me. And it also speaks to the idea that, and I think a lot of people on the right are coming to realize this, these people are playing dirty, and they have no compunction about playing dirty when it comes to other people's children. And you have to act accordingly.
So the book banner title, I feel like they hit us with because it's sensitive. Nobody likes a
Right.
book banner, right? Even book burners. I mean, there's memes made of us burning books, standing in a circle. It's complete nonsense. But they're really trying to make it stick everywhere. All the memes, all the news stories, they all the social media. They tag us, they post book burners. But I could say the sky is blue today, and they would put under there, "You're a book banner, you're a book burner," and because they've been trying to discredit us from the day we launched. Why? Because we're upsetting the balance of power. No one has really challenged the teachers' unions ever in the history of the United States. We've just given them public education. And here we are, moms standing up saying, no more. We're taking this back. We want a seat at the table, knock off this nonsense. And so, they started calling us racists in the beginning, and then we moved to bigots, and then we were Nazis, and now we are book banners. Nothing sticks because we don't let it stop us. We are not going to slow down. These are our kids. This is the future of our country. I'm a proud American. I love our heritage. And, you put this on the shelf for my child, I'm going to ask for you to not have that on the shelf for my child. And the school district gets to decide. Moms for Liberty members we're not banning anything. Nothing.
I got to tell you, I think that's kind of an upgrade to go from Nazi to book banner. I mean, I'd much rather be a book banner than a Nazi. At least you're not killing people. And that's kind of interesting.
It's usually Nazi book banner. A lot of times it's like, do you know what the Nazis did? They burned books like you. And I'm like, I've never burned a book.
But it's also kind of fascinating because 5 minutes ago, there were all these books that are considered homophobic, transphobic, racist, whatever epithet they want, that they were interested in kind of reading out of polite society. And the second the switch is flipped, it's like, oh my God, free speech. First, this is an attack on the First Amendment. It's what I'm really gladdened about is how quickly social media can have people's flip-flops be side by side, so that if I'm an objective person or a moderate or just not interested, I don't have to have much insight into the topic to be like, wait a minute, this person is talking out of both sides of their mouth, and is not someone whose opinion I can take in good faith because they clearly have an agenda. Speaking of which, I'm sure you're friends with Corey DeAngelis, who's a great. I officiated his wedding a couple of weeks ago.
Did you really?
I
I've seen
did.
all of his photos. My
Yeah.
goodness. He looks like he is living his best life right now.
Yes,
So
and during their vows, they wrote their own vows. His wife, in fact, she became a wife at that moment. She had a little dig at one of your favorite people, Randy Weingarten.
in his
Um,
vows?
yeah, oh yeah,
Are
yeah.
you
She goes,
serious?
she goes, I promise I won't keep. I'll give you time to spend on your girlfriend, Twitter, bashing Randy. It was
Oh
really
my gosh.
fun.
Is that on film somewhere? Holy
I don't
cow.
think
I
so,
can't
but
believe it.
it was a very funny moment, and I just love it when people write their own vows and have their personality into the ceremony. What I wanted to ask you is, can you talk a bit about Randy Weingarten, the teachers union, and their impact on American education? Take your time. We got an hour.
Sorry. I was, trying to articulate this perfectly. There's no better way to say it than the national teachers unions have destroyed public education, and Randy is their leader. So it's the destruction of public education can be laid at her feet. The failure of public education can be laid at her feet. Keeping schools closed for 2 years in places like Los Angeles and other cities where they are struggling with the lowest reading scores, and keeping kids locked out of schools for 2 years with a list of demands. Los Angeles, the teachers union's list of demands were, we will open schools when you defund the police. What does that
Oh, is
have
that
to
really stuff like that? They were tying it in?
100%? 100%.
Oh,
And
wow.
if you look at the American Federation of Teachers, or the any of the national teachers unions, so they have these conferences in the summer, and they get together and they vote on what they're going to stand for and fight for. If you look the last 2 years, because that's when I've been following it closely, it is hideous. Their list of things they're voting on and standing for. And what you won't find anything about education. What you will find is they're voting on abortion. As a teachers union, they are going to vote on policies about Israel. They are going to get involved in foreign policy. I mean, the list is endless, and you just read it and you're mind boggled. You're like, your name is a teachers union. Are you going to mention the fact, anything about education at all? Anything about teachers? Nope. They have lost their way. They have lost their mission. They are despicable. They have kept schools closed. They have colluded with the Biden administration to label parents domestic terrorists, to put threat tags on them. They have colluded with the National School Board Association.
Wait. What's a threat tag?
Oh my gosh. You don't know anything. Do you not know about this? I live
That's
this.
why you're here.
Oh, like, I get fired up here. So
you should get fired up. These are kids. They're innocent children who are captives. Of course you should get fired up.
Yeah, this is our kids. But what I'm about to tell you is the overreach of our federal government and what they've been doing to weaponize the government against moms. So let's just go back. We're 2.5 years old, and I'll say maybe 1.5 years, 2 years ago, the DOJ, Merrick Garland, came out with a threat tag. So tag all complaints that come in with like a hashtag almost, that tags these people as basically domestic terrorists. And these are for people that are showing up at school board meetings and are scary, basically. This is when moms were very upset because schools were closed, forced masking. Right. We had a mom that showed up and was very angry at her school board meeting, throwing her weight around because her child had been quarantined for 40 straight days, never been sick in his life. They kept saying, oh, he was exposed to somebody who was sick. Oh, he was in a room where somebody else was sick. So he just kept getting quarantined and quarantined. He was getting so far behind. And so she went to yell at her school board. Well, this was right after the threat tag was announced from the DOJ. And what the DOJ did is they directed the FBI to go investigate whenever a threat tag was assigned to one of these cases. And so one of those school board members called the FBI hotline that he set up. And this was happening all across the country, but this is one specific case. And the FBI called her the next day. She's at home making peanut butter and jelly, and she gets a call from the FBI. Did you speak at your school board meeting last night? Do you have weapons in your home? Any history of mental illness? All kinds of very intrusive questions, and then ended it with, don't tell anybody that we called. And
wait, hold on. Because I was aware that they had labeled parents domestic terrorists. Like, I thought this was like in some memo, or if there was like some kind of like, file where it's like, okay, these organizations have the potential to radicalize people. And there's usually these laundry lists, you know what I mean? You see those all the time, or like this iconography is associated with domestic terrorists, and they'll have like the Gadsden flag and things like that. So I thought it was like one of those like goofy one-offs. I did not realize that literally the FBI is calling private citizens for not only doing something that's legal, but doing something that's admirable, which is getting involved in their kids' education and making their voice heard. I'm sure she wasn't flinging poo or brandishing a firearm or anything like that, to be some kind of, disruptive influence in this meeting. And I don't understand where the FBI gets off telling people don't call. And frankly, again, you and I talked before we started recording, as someone who's from the Soviet Union, that is something extremely scary to me when the government tells you don't tell anyone, because then what do? Because what are the consequences? She must have been scared to say something.
Yes, she came to us, obviously. She was terrified. Oh, God. She was absolutely terrified. She has been through, and many of our moms and other parents that aren't even part of our organization have been through. And the story doesn't stop there. It keeps going. The attacks on parents don't end there. And as a side note, Tiffany, my co-founder, has spoken on a congressional hearing on this stuff. So it's all in the national record. Congress knows what's been going on. Whistleblowers came out of the FBI exposing even more than we even knew originally. And so, that has kind of died down. I think they've been shamed so much for carrying on that way, but the damage was done. And what was that mom doing? She just didn't just show up at a school board meeting because she was concerned about her son. She was practicing her First Amendment constitutional right to address her government with her grievances. These are, as an elected school board member in her community, she is protected by the First Amendment to show up and speak. And the fact that the Biden administration, that the DOJ and the FBI think it's okay to come after her and intimidate her for practicing her First Amendment right. And if you want to look at what's going on in our country right now and what we're tolerating as a First Amendment right, in comparison to what they wouldn't tolerate during COVID with moms that were upset about what was happening with schools, it's not even comparable. But may I continue? Because it hasn't stopped there. Since then, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and maybe you were going to get to this, but it's all tied because the Southern Poverty Law Center declared us, I don't know, 5 months ago now, an anti-government extremist group. They added us to their hate map. Another tactic to silence us, another tactic to shut us down. The thing is, we have records showing that the Southern Poverty Law Center executives visited the Biden White House 6 times leading up to that declaration of us. And so now the DOJ didn't work, the FBI didn't work. So let's go to a private third party nonprofit and see if they can do the damage to this organization to stop them, to silence them. And it's disgusting. And we'll take it even from there. Heritage Foundation, because they have more funds and been around a whole lot longer, they have stepped up to help us, and they filed public records requests now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, well, no, it gets worse. They filed all those public records requests asking for my name, Tiffany's name, Moms for Liberty. When it's been used, they denied. They did not comply. None of them, not the DOJ, not the FBI, not the Biden White House. Nobody complied, not the Department of Ed. And so now, thankful to Heritage again, they have filed a lawsuit against all of those entities demanding those records. So
yeah,
that's
isn't FOIA pretty strong and stuff like this?
Yeah, yes, I think so, but they're going to play the game and dance around it and make people pay money and resources to get what we should automatically have as in the public.
Folks, here's where we are. Barron's is warning the stock market looks like the dot-com boom before the bust. The Magnificent Seven, which are all tech stocks, they account for more than 25% of 2023's gains. Fortune is warning the S&P is heading below 3,000. 2 of the biggest stock market crashes happened in October, which was 1929, and Black Monday, 1987. Seasonally, we are entering the best 6-month period for gold and silver. And along with the Fed nearing the end of their rate hikes, gold is poised to skyrocket. JP Morgan and Wells Fargo are both forecasting gold to hit all-time highs in 12 to 18 months. So here's what I want you to do. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention my name, Michael Malice, and you'll always get best-in-class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has the no-fee-for-life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no-fee-for-life IRA and qualifying rollovers. All you have to do is call 888-505-9845 to get a free investor guide, or even better, just go to malicegold.com. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. So call 888-505-9845 or go to malicegold.com and start protecting your money from the state. Hey, folks, Michael Malice here, tolerated author, Twitter asshole, and sheath underwear model. I love wearing sheath. I wear it every single day. They're the most comfortable briefs you'll ever wear. And I'm currently designing a new pair of sheath based on a certain type of fish, which you'll see in the coming months. Every time you hear my voice, you should know I'm wearing sheath. And what makes sheath different is that they have dual pouch technology. They have one pouch for one part of your male anatomy, another pouch for another part of your male anatomy. Sounds weird, but when you put them on, they're going to be super comfortable. They keep you cool in the hot weather, keep you nice and snug in an interview, on a date, doing a podcast, so on and so forth. After you tried sheath, you're never going back to the other brands. Support the underwear that supports you. Go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice. You get 20% off. That's sheathunderwear.com, promo code MALICE, 20% off. They've got shirts, they've got hoodies, they've got mesh ones. They have something for you. They also have a girls line, but since women aren't allowed to listen to the show, I can't help you. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice. Let's get back to the show. I want to point out something that you're, I'm sure at this point, intimately familiar with, but people listening to the show might not be yet. So there's a technique that the corporate press uses in conjunction with organizations like the ADL and the SPLC. So they'll say Moms for Liberty, comma, which has been branded as an anti-government extremist group by independent watchdog organizations, comma, and they'll have a link, very fairly link, and is that a kid?
Yeah, actually. So I'm in our office, but we are all moms. So often the children are here. So yeah, that's one
Okay,
of our employees, 4 year olds, and he likes to pop in and bring the
that's
screen.
that's totally fine. But they'll have that hyperlink, and the link will always be to the SPLC or the ADL. And that way they have this air of, we're not saying it. This is it's like Rotten Tomatoes or it's like Yelp. This is just the community consensus. And it's always these two organizations that have a very extreme agenda, not extreme in the way that I would approve of. And I talked about this with Chaya, who is not only Jewish but Orthodox. She keeps kosher and the Sabbath and so on and so forth. The ADL, which is supposedly fighting discrimination against Jews and other organizations, they did their darndest to try to cancel her. In defense of so-called trans rights, when all she does is copy paste things that are public. So but I gotta tell you, like, I know it's not fun as a mom having that term. I identify as an anti-government extremist because I just think extremist just means someone with principles that you don't like. So I guess you and I can kind of beg to differ there. But is it hard for you to be, as a mom, and moms are nice and sweet, to be the target of so much hatred online? Because there is this kind of like campaign to vilify your organization and you both personally.
It's not hard for me
Okay.
personally. I must have a hedge of protection around me because I literally let it roll. I do not care. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. The people around me, my family, my friends, my community that I've served for years know who I am. The hate is intense. The threats are intense. Sometimes they're sick and twisted. Sometimes they're rage filled. Sometimes they are true threats to our lives.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like I can't tell you how much I don't care at all about any of it. I will say, however, we have 300 chapter chairs that have put their name over
Yeah.
their chapters on their county, and most of them do care. This is new to them. They're not
Yeah.
previous political people. They're standing up in their community with their neighbors around them who maybe didn't know them as well before this, and they are being labeled all the things that I've told you we get called, and it's very hard for them. And it's unfair and it's wrong. And in the beginning, they always call and say, "They said I hate so and so. They say I don't like Black people. Why would they say that?" And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so terribly sorry about this." They don't really understand what's going on. They have to be hardened to it, and we have to tell them just to let it roll.
This might be an opportunity for you to have some kind of introductory essay to people who are joining the organization as chapter chairs, because it must be confusing for them, because they're saying, hey, this material is sexual in nature. It's not appropriate for kids. Maybe as adults, it's fine, or in high school if you want to have some kind of sex education. And the response is, why do you hate Black people? So not only is they're getting a hardcore negative accusation, but it also, you're trying to sit there and be like, where's this even coming from? How is this your response?
So we try to prepare our moms. We vet them, we interview them, we talk to them about what they're going to
Okay.
experience. There's really no way to prepare them. For example, our national summit in Philadelphia a couple months ago, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of protesters. And the entire Philly PD had to be there. Homeland Security had to be there. They had to shut off blocks from around the building for us to go from the buses into the museum where our kickoff party was. The protesters, the police held them back, but they're screaming at us, angry, middle fingers, cussing. Some of us had our children with the children are covering the ears. Like, you just, until you experience that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're a normal mom who like goes to PTA meetings and church and Walmart or Public, you just living your life, and then you decide to go to this conference because you believe in what we're talking about, and then you experience that, like, your whole world sometimes is in question.
There's a lot of misinformation and rumor on the internet about certain things in schools, so I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. How pervasive is gender ideology being taught in government schools? And also, you hear, I want to believe that it's just conservative, propaganda, that they're giving kids puberty blockers without their parents' consent, or there's laws in place that kids can transition without ever telling their parents. Like, and obviously it varies very differently from state by state. Can you talk about where we are in 2023 regarding this issue?
I wish it varied from state to state. I wish people that feel like they're in a very red county, or they know their superintendent, or they love their mayor, that they're protected, but they're not. It's not. It's not hype. It's not made up. It's not made up stuff. So gender ideology, the reason we needed the Parental Rights and Education Bill here in Florida, is being taught statewide in some states. So New Jersey, for example, they have adopted comprehensive sex ed. You're like, oh, well, sex ed, we all kind of had that, right? Biology, how a baby's made. No, 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 no. Comprehensive sex ed is comprehensive. And in those standards, which means what is taught in instruction, is that by the end of second grade, children should understand that they could be a boy or a girl, neither or both, and that it fluctuates depending on how they feel.
Wait, seriously? In all of New Jersey, the kids, what, 5 or 6 or 7, whatever the age that is, this is what they're taught?
Yeah, that is in their that's in their standards, and it's all across the country. I mean, that just so happens that their state adopted that as their sex ed curriculum, but there's districts all across the country individually that have adopted this for sure. Some places in Wisconsin are so bad. We have some strong chapters there, and they constantly are sharing out stuff from their school district that they see. Sixth graders, I don't even know if I want to tell you what they were exposed to. Teachers were instructed to buy a male sexual body part, a wooden one, for them to practice putting condoms on. That's sixth graders. That's 11 and 12-year-olds. This stuff is happening everywhere. And that same curriculum actually was adopted here in Florida, I think in Leon County. And
Wait, I'm sorry. I got to interrupt you because I know this is your job and this is something you talk about like 24/7, but this is kind of new to me and I can't just like skim over it because this is just, I find it very disturbing. Okay. So they are in Wisconsin, right? And I'm sure other places, they are introducing graphic physical representations of male anatomy and encouraging sixth graders, 11 and 12, to apply prophylactics themselves. So they're getting them physically ready to practice both handling male genitalia and also applying protection on male genitalia.
Yeah, it was proposed that that curriculum be adopted in Leon County, Florida, and our chapter, because what our chapters do is they meet monthly and they go over the school board agendas. They saw the name of the curriculum and they looked into it, and they connected with one of our Wisconsin chapter chairs who was just exposing all of that. And so when they saw the title of the curriculum, they said, oh boy, Leon County, Florida, pretty conservative area. So they brought it to the school board's attention. And a lot of time, I mean, school board members, look, we're giving them a hard time. But when I was on the school board, you adopt textbooks. You don't have time individually to review all subject, all years, everything. You have to take some of the recommendations from your staff. I used to try to get parents involved. Please, doctor, come read the biology book. Tell me if it's a good book before I put my stamp of approval on it. Could hardly get anybody involved to do that. But that's what Montessori chapters do, is they review this stuff. And so they're finding it all and they're shocked. And so same curriculum was proposed in Leon County, and luckily they got it stopped for something more appropriate.
But I think the thing is, if you go back to when we were kids and things weren't particularly, it wasn't the 1950s when you and I were kids. And if someone said like, this is what's going to happen, it would sound like they're like, put on 3 tinfoil hats, Alex Jones, you're a crazy person. No one is ever going to have things this graphic and like acting out pornography with sixth graders. So, and what's even crazier is now that it's here, to even recognize that it's happening, you're still regarded as crazy as you would have been like whatever 30, 40 years ago.
People don't believe it.
Right.
The opposing side changes the language a lot and a lot of words. It's hard to argue with these people in a public forum because they try to change the meaning of the word, and then it's hard. It's chaos and confusion. But
you want to hear one of my lines? They use language to manipulate, not to communicate. And once you understand that, everything else falls into place.
100%. But I would argue that most of the population hasn't realized that yet.
Correct.
And they hear the word sex education and they think of, I don't know, I'm probably older than you, but when I was a kid, it was a film strip. It was like beep.
Yep. Yeah.
Beep, harmless. And even that was mortifying, like the boys in one class, the girls in the other. And blah, blah, blah. So, but harmless, mostly biology. What's happening now is nowhere near that. They learn about oral sex and anal sex and what that is, and they learn about abortions and what that is. And families don't want this. Families do not want their children learning these things at school. 2/3 of American fourth graders cannot read on grade level. 2/3. That means 1/3 of American children can read properly. 17% of Black children can read properly. 21% of Hispanic children can read properly. We are doomed as a country and a society, and we're setting them up for failure in their future with those kind of reading scores. And yet we have time in school to learn how to put condoms on fake male body parts.
Do you know what's funny is that, like, if we sat here and joked that in 20 years, like, one of the class projects would be for these kids to make their own OnlyFans, like, it sounds like a punchline, and now I don't even know that that's really a joke. Because, like, at a certain, like, if the dial keeps turning, where else are you gonna go?
It's really what seems to be deliberate attacks to sexualize our children in the public education system, and maybe even culturally. It's astonishing, between the books that we were just talking about, putting them in the classrooms. This one, I won't read it to you because you don't like to, but it's for 4 to 8-year-olds. It says it on the cover. I read it on Chris Cuomo's show. He let me read it a couple months ago. It's astonishing. They zoom in. We did a little ad of it. We zoomed in on Chris Cuomo as I'm reading it. He's like, because he said, oh, you just, you're against LGBTQ people. You don't want anything taught in schools. You're trying to ban books. And I was like, let's talk about this book for 40.
Yeah, but in all fairness, he's a filthy pervert. So maybe he got off on you reading pornography to him.
I think he was even shocked that this was being, I don't think people know. And it's shocking the people that do know and defend it.
They're not. I don't think they're. So there's the two schools, right? There's the ones who defend it, say this is appropriate. Otherwise, you're going to marginalize gay kids or trans kids, whatever, assuming you believe in that concept. But then the others who are like, it's just not happening. And this is just like, if you had your way, kids would only be reading the Bible and be taught creationism. And, they would think the earth is flat. Like, that's what basically the message is.
So I don't want to change the subject on you. I know this is your interview, but did you know today is International Pronoun Day? And I bring that up because of something that you just said. You said, the consequences of you don't leave this in school and it hurts some children. All of the things I was seeing this morning about International Pronoun Day is if you don't identify someone with their preferred pronouns, they will kill themselves. That's the arguments that are being used in schools. Right. Even, not all teachers, most teachers, I would say, are not comfortable with this stuff. They don't like what's going on. They're being handed some of this curriculum. They're being given these policies to enact. They're not comfortable with it, but they're also being told, if you don't do this, the child's going to commit suicide. Teachers, in general, get into it because they
Would you rather have a live daughter or a dead son? That's the line they use. Yeah,
exactly. And it's a false argument, of course. But anyways, it's International Pronoun Day, and we're supposed to be celebrating all pronouns today.
Folks, your welcome is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. And let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming, like when your favorite podcast is playing, the person next to you is talking, your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try. You might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive, collision coverage, or personal injury protection. Then you'll see a Progressive direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare, so it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
What's up, guys? I'm Brendan Schaub. If you love everything mixed martial arts, I'm talking UFC breakdowns, UFC picks, one championship picks, Bellator, PFL, you name it, your boy breaks it all down. Tune into The Schaub Show, available every Monday wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Schaub Show. Enjoy.
Let's get back to the show. Let's talk about something else, which is very pervasive, and my buddy James Lindsay has been doing a lion's share of the work on this, which I'm sure you're friends with him and supportive of his work. The 1619 Project, 1619 Project, which was sponsored by the New York Times, which has a great track record of caring about genocide and other atrocities. That has been taught to some extent in schools, even though they kind of backpedal, says, well, this isn't history, this is kind of just one perspective. Can you talk about that fight with CRT and how that's spread through the education system and where we are in 2023 in that fight?
I think people are still to this day confused at what critical race theory is. There's those of us that understand it completely. Most people, especially if they're what you call it, the drive-by media, and they're just watching the headlines, there's a portion of society that thinks critical race theory means Black history. And if you don't want critical race theory, you just want to do away with Black history. And that's unfortunate because it's a false argument again. And you're both arguing past each other. Once people understand what it is and what critical theory is in general, other than the radicals, nobody wants it in their schools. It has been seeping into our schools for quite some time. I think everybody's starting to understand that. It's coming in through teacher training programs, first and foremost. So a lot of times the district will say, we're not teaching, there's no critical race theory class in this middle school. However, every teacher in that middle school did a 3-day workshop through the lens of critical race theory. And so it shows its ugly tenets all the time in public education because the teachers have been trained on it. And people like Ibram X. Kendi and others of his ilk and following are making millions of dollars off the backs of taxpayers to train teachers to go in to basically divide children by class, by color, any way they can divide up kids. It was so bad. I think here in Jacksonville a couple of years ago, one of our moms spoke at the state school board meeting about it. She is a Black mom, and her daughters were divided literally. The whole class was divided by Black and white, and they had to stand on opposite sides of the room. And when she found that out, she was livid, and they were telling her daughter that basically she's a perpetual victim because of the color of her skin. And she was not having that. So super proud of her.
But is that even legal?
Not in the state of Florida anymore. There was nothing stopping it then. But now in the state of Florida, you can't do that. It's happening all across the country.
But so is there successful pushback on this issue, or is this still something that's escalating in terms of its permutation throughout our government school system?
I think the tide is turning on it. I think people are starting to see. I think the smartest thing we did was translate CRT and even stop saying CRT and say victim and oppressor, dividing by color. Nobody in America, they can understand that language, and nobody wants that to happen except for the radicals, of course. When I say nobody, I think for the rest of this interview, when I say nobody, I'm not talking about the radicals that are trying to radicalize our children. I'm just talking about everyday, ordinary Americans. They don't want us divided by color of our skin or by class. They don't want their children being told they're victims or oppressors in any situation, especially because of something their ancestors did.
Something I always, chasing conservatives about is that conservatives don't know how to take a win when they get one, because the corporate press isn't going to acknowledge a defeat, and the conservatives just will pretend like forget something ever happened. And a great example of this was, I think most of us can remember whenever it was when refugees welcome. We need mass Muslim immigration to America. Refugees welcome. I was upstate New York. There was some kind of coffee shop, the big sign in the window, refugees welcome. I don't know how I'd get from Syria to upstate New York, but I'm really glad I'd be able to go in there and get coffee because of the sign, and then the signs got covered over very quickly with BLM. Linda Sarsour is on the side of a milk carton. You can't find her anymore, even though she was on TV every 5 minutes, and they just completely vanished her. Can you tell me what you regard as the big victories you've seen since your organization has been active?
Yes, of course I can. As an organization, we have had remarkable, astonishing, I'm going to use the word astonishing victories. 2.5 years old. We are in 48 states as of last week. 300.
Wait, what are the holdouts? What are the 2 states?
Utah.
What?
Utah and Vermont.
Wait, Utah is the most Republican state. Bill Clinton came in 3rd in 92 behind Perot and Bush. Utah doesn't have a Moms for Liberty chapter?
Does not. Utah and Vermont.
Well, Vermont, you can kind of wrap your head around, but
yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know. The places that are the worst, people want to fight back. So
sure, that's fair.
quite a few chapters in California, really strong chapters in New York, because they need to find each other. They need to connect. They
Yeah.
need their people. It's such a lonely place when your government is stepping all over your rights and the rights of your children and the right to raise your children. So maybe Utah feels like there's no problems. There are. I know people in Utah. I've heard about some of the curriculum. There's problems. There's plenty of problems, but maybe I don't know. Hopefully they come around. We would like to have all 50 states by the end of the year. So that's 300 chapters. Each chapter covers a county. We started with 2 chapters in Florida, 2.5 years ago. So that in itself is remarkable. We, in this last legislative session, our chapters, once you get multiple chapters in a state, they form a legislative committee and work to get bills across the finish line and signed. 24 bills in 7 states just this last session. Everything from protecting kids from gender ideology, parental bill of rights, transparency bills, so schools have to show you the curriculum and the books.
Wait, sorry, I got to interrupt you again because this,
Okay.
again, this is your world. They had to have legislation to have the curriculum be publicly available. Like schools weren't letting their parents see what was being taught to the kids. I feel so naive. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just feel like an idiot. But that is something that had to be fought legislatively.
Yeah, parents do public, like, first of all, they ask to see it and they're denied. You ask to see the teacher's manuals and you're often denied.
Wait, by what grounds?
Like, what are you going to do? Wrestle under the ground
No,
and
but
take?
what they say, they got to have some kind of corporate BS double talk. Like, what do they say? Like, this isn't appropriate for, like, what excuse do they have?
It's usually copyright issues. We don't know what you're going to do with it. We have the rights to it. You might reproduce it. It's always just nonsense.
Okay.
One mom in Rhode Island, she wanted her kindergartners, her child that's in kindergarten, the curriculum, and they refused. She did a public records request. They ended up suing her, saying, because she did a public records request and another one, and it was like they wanted thousands of dollars to prepare the curriculum so she could see it. The teachers union there locally ended up suing her, saying that she was harassing. It made national news everywhere, and that's just that's one case of many cases.
But here's the thing: if you guys are this kind of kooky, radical, extreme organization, and I'm the school, it's really easy for me to make you look like fools. Because here's our curriculum. Look, everything here is great. Moms for Liberty don't know what they're talking about. Go home and be quiet. And then what can you say if that was the transparency? Just like with body cams with police, right? I've been spending way too much time on YouTube watching these things, but you see examples of police acting horrifically and despicably. And you see police doing everything they can to respond with force when someone's charging them with a knife. When you have that transparency, it's an objective record and people can make informed decisions. So you would think, the schools, especially, you've got kids there who are captive. It's like, here, please, like, look at what we're teaching the kids. This is all great. You guys should be supportive. That I'm that naive that I'm surprised this isn't the situation.
So one of the things is, first of all, I say all the time, if school districts were doing their job, Moms for Liberty wouldn't exist. And truly, is this what I want to be doing at this phase in my life? Working my tail off at a nonprofit? I mean, it's exhausting, traveling away from my family. You think our moms, chapter chairs that are volunteering, you think they want to be spending 6 hours at a school board meeting on a Tuesday night, missing their kid's soccer game? No, this is not for fun. This is because it's necessary. And if school districts were doing their jobs by engaging the community, having conversations, bringing everyone to the table before big decisions were made, there'd be no need for Moms for Liberty. And I hope that day comes, but it's not going to come. I've been around school districts long enough. I've worked for a wonderful school. I mean, I served this school district here, which is a wonderful school district. But even in this school district, there's something that permeates education that they circle the wagons all the time. They have to protect themselves. And so they do not know how to engage with the community. They see somebody ask a question and they close in, they bury it down, they cover it up. I don't know why that is. It seems to be across the board, but it's what leads to a lot of this. And of course, as a mom, you're like, well, there must be something really bad in there if they don't want to give it to me. And then that makes you want to see it more.
Folks, head on over to malice.locals.com where Tina will take your questions exclusively. Tina, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Ooh. Can we talk about the technical difficulties, or that's probably going to get cut out in the end? What did you say? Did you call me a boomer at that point? Boomer difficulties? Is that I think? Is that the best part? No, that was not the best part. I don't know that I've ever been called a boomer. What's the age there? I don't know that I like that a whole lot.
Boomer
So
is the state of mind. It's someone who's befuddled by technology.
no, I am not befuddled by technology. It truly like a ghost took over my computer. So I've enjoyed talking about Moms for Liberty. I appreciate the opportunity you've given me to do this. I didn't learn much about you because I've done most of the talking, but to hear that you're a Jewish man here in America, immigrated, knowing what's going on in the world today, I just appreciate you. I appreciate you speaking for freedom, for speaking up for liberty, for giving me this platform.
You are welcome.